The day Benjamin Bradshaw buried his wedding ring in the hard-pan earth behind his ranch house in Alamosa, Colorado. The September wind carried dust devils across the valley like dancing ghosts mocking his loneliness. He watched the gold band disappear under 2 feet of unforgiving soil, thinking maybe if he buried it deep enough, the shame might go with it. Catherine had left 3 months ago, taking everything that mattered except the ranch itself, which she deemed too worthless for a woman who just caught the eye of Marcus Thornhill, the silver mine owner from Denver with pockets deeper than the San Luis Valley was wide. Benjamin straightened his back, wiping sweat from his brow despite the autumn chills settling over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. At 28, he'd thought he'd built something worth keeping. The cattle operation wasn't grand, but it was honest work. Apparently honest work didn't shine like silver nuggets, and Catherine's eyes had always been drawn to things that sparkled. He'd come home that June evening to find her carpetbag packed, her letter crisp on the kitchen table, explaining in careful script how Marcus could give her the life she deserved. The life Benjamin never could. He kicked dirt over the burial spot and headed toward the barn, where his stallion needed grooming. The ranch hands had mostly cleared out after Catherine left, sensing the operation might fold. Only old Miguel remained, loyal to a fault, tending the remaining 30 head of cattle with the dedication of a man who had nowhere else to go. Benjamin couldn't afford to pay him much, but Miguel never complained. The town of Alamosa had grown steadily since the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad pushed through in 1878, bringing commerce and complications in equal measure. That was 7 years ago now, in this year of 1885, and the town sprawled along the railroad tracks like a cat stretching in afternoon sun. Benjamin avoided Main Street when he could, knowing the pitying looks that followed him. Everyone knew Catherine had left. Everyone knew why, but necessity drove him to town that October morning, needing supplies and hoping to sell 2 steers to the butcher. He loaded the animals into a small pen on his wagon and made the 5-mile journey, watching the mountains turn purple in the morning light. The San Luis Valley stretched endless around him, flat and unforgiving, beautiful in a way that demanded respect rather than affection. He was tying off his wagon outside Morrison's General Store when he heard the commotion near the hotel. A woman's voice rang clear and sharp, arguing with someone. Benjamin glanced over and saw a well-dressed man climbing into a fancy carriage, ignoring the blonde woman on the hotel steps clutching a single leather case. "You said you loved me," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You said we'd build a life together." The man didn't even turn around. "I said many things, Olivia. Perhaps you should have listened more carefully to which promises I actually made." His driver snapped the reins, and the carriage rolled away toward the train station, leaving the woman standing alone as curious onlookers gathered. Benjamin recognized the man. Marcus Thornhill, the same snake who'd stolen Catherine. The woman, Olivia, stood frozen for a long moment before she seemed to realize people were staring. She lifted her chin with admirable dignity and walked back into the hotel, though Benjamin could see her hands shaking from across the street. He stood there, his own hands clenched around the wagon rail, anger flooding through him. So Thornhill had done it again, found a new plaything and discarded the old one. That meant Catherine was probably already yesterday's news, though Benjamin took no satisfaction in the thought. He finished his business quickly, selling the steers for a fair price and buying flour, coffee, and tobacco. As he loaded his purchases, he noticed the hotel manager forcibly escorting Olivia out the front door, her single case tumbling down the steps. "I told you, Miss Langford, Mr. Thornhill sent word he's no longer covering your expenses." I run a business, not a charity house. You've got 1 hour to settle your bill or clear out." Olivia stood on the dusty street, staring at her scattered belongings, and Benjamin saw the exact moment her composure shattered. Her shoulders sagged, and she sank down onto the hotel steps, pressing her hands to her face. She was young, probably no more than 23 or 24, and clearly far from home based on her fine traveling clothes and Eastern accent. Benjamin should have minded his own business. He had enough troubles without adopting someone else's. But he thought of Catherine and Thornhill laughing together somewhere, thought of how that silver mining bastard used people like disposable handkerchiefs, and his feet were moving before his brain caught up. "Madam," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "You all right?" She looked up and he saw her eyes were a startling green, red-rimmed from crying. "Do I look all right?" The words came out sharper than intended, and she immediately looked apologetic. "I'm sorry, that was rude, you were being kind. You got anywhere to go?" "No." The word was barely a whisper. "I left everything in Philadelphia to come here, he promised me." She trailed off, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter what he promised, I was a fool." Benjamin crouched down so they were eye level. "Marcus Thornhill makes fools of everyone. It's his particular talent." Recognition flickered across her face. "You know him. He ran off with my wife 4 months ago." Benjamin watched her process this information. "Looks like he got bored of her too. I'm Benjamin Bradshaw. I've got a cattle ranch outside town." "Olivia Langford." She studied him with those keen green eyes. "Why are you talking to me?" "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but I know what it feels like to be left with nothing by that man, and I reckon nobody deserves to be sitting in the dirt because of his selfishness." She laughed, though it sounded more like a sob. "I have $17 to my name and nowhere to go. The hotel wants $40 for the bill he left unpaid." Benjamin made a decision that was probably stupid but felt right anyway. "I need help at the ranch. Housekeeper, cook, someone to manage the books. Previous housekeeper left when." He didn't finish that sentence. "Pays not much, but it includes room and board and it's honest work." Olivia stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "You're offering me a job, you don't know anything about me." "I know you're stranded. I know we both got burned by the same man. I know you look like you can read and write, which is more than I can say for myself beyond basic sums." He stood, offering his hand. "I know it's not Philadelphia, but the ranch house is solid, and Miguel's wife, Rosa, can teach you what you need to know about running a household out here." She looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. The hotel manager was watching from the doorway, arms crossed impatiently. The few townspeople who'd witnessed her humiliation were still whispering. Benjamin could see her weighing her options and coming up empty on alternatives. Finally, she placed her hand in his and stood. "All right, Mr. Bradshaw, I'll take your offer. Though I should warn you, I know absolutely nothing about ranching or Colorado or life outside of city streets." "That's fine. I don't know much about trust anymore, so we'll both be learning something new." They settled her hotel bill with Benjamin's money, which left him shorter on funds than he liked but not desperate. Olivia's belongings fit into 2 cases, which told Benjamin everything about how completely Thornhill had uprooted her life. She climbed onto the wagon seat beside him without complaint, though he could see her hands gripping her cases like they might disappear too. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Benjamin didn't push conversation, and Olivia seemed lost in her own thoughts. The valley spread around them, golden grass rippling in the wind, the Sangre de Cristo Range standing sentinel to the east. The mountains had gotten their name from Spanish explorers who'd seen the peaks turn blood red at sunset. Benjamin had always found them beautiful in a harsh way, like most things in Colorado territory. The ranch house came into view, a sturdy wood frame structure with a wraparound porch Benjamin had built himself 2 years back. It wasn't fancy, but the roof didn't leak and the windows had real glass. The barn stood 50 yards away, flanked by corrals and a modest bunkhouse where Miguel and Rosa lived. Chickens scratched in the yard, and a few cattle grazed in the near pasture. "It's not much," Benjamin said as he pulled the wagon to a stop. Olivia looked around and something in her expression softened. "It's real. That's more than I had with Marcus." She climbed down before Benjamin could help her, lifting her cases with determined independence. Rosa emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. She was a solid woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Miguel had married her 30 years ago in New Mexico, and they'd worked ranches together ever since. She looked at Olivia with surprise, then at Benjamin with a raised eyebrow. "Rosa, this is Miss Olivia Langford. She's going to be helping around the house." Benjamin grabbed Olivia's cases from the wagon. "Miss Langford, Rosa pretty much runs everything that matters around here. Just Olivia, please." Olivia extended her hand, which Rosa shook firmly. "I should tell you up front that I don't know what I'm doing, but I learn quickly, and I'll work hard." Rosa's stern expression cracked into a smile. "Any woman standing in Colorado dust wearing Philadelphia shoes and willing to work is all right with me. Come on, I'll show you where you'll sleep and get you some proper clothes. Those fancy things won't last a week out here." As Rosa led Olivia inside, Miguel appeared from the barn, giving Benjamin a long, measuring look. The old vaquero had a gift for communicating volumes without speaking. His expression clearly asked if Benjamin had lost his mind. "Don't start," Benjamin said, unhitching the horses. "I did not say anything, boss. You were thinking it loud enough." Miguel chuckled, helping with the horses. "She is very pretty, is also very much not from here. She needed help. Thornhill left her stranded in town." "Ah." Understanding flooded Miguel's weathered face. "So you save her because you could not save your wife." Benjamin stopped working, the leather traces heavy in his hands. "Catherine didn't want saving. She wanted silver and parties and things I couldn't give her. Maybe I just wanted to do one decent thing today. Maybe you are lonely and she is pretty and you both are hurt." Miguel shrugged. "Is not bad reason. Just be careful, boss. Hurt people do not always make good decisions." That night, Benjamin lay in his bed listening to unfamiliar sounds in the house. Olivia's room was on the opposite end of the hall, the guest room that had stayed empty since Catherine left. He could hear the soft creak of floorboards as she moved around, probably as unable to sleep as he was. He'd done something impulsive today, something Catherine would have mocked him for. Bringing home a stranger because they'd both been wronged by the same man wasn't exactly sound reasoning. But when he'd seen Olivia sitting on those steps, discarded and alone, something in his chest had twisted painfully. He'd felt that same abandonment, that same worthlessness Thornhill's choices implied. If he could spare someone else even a fraction of that pain, maybe his own meant something. The house settled into silence eventually, and Benjamin drifted toward sleep, thinking about green eyes and the weight of beginning again. Morning came early on a working ranch. Benjamin was up before dawn, heading to the barn to start feeding while Miguel checked the water troughs. The air was crisp, frost glittering on the grass, his breath visible in the pre-dawn darkness. He'd finished with the horses and was measuring out grain for the cattle when he heard the house door open. Olivia stood on the porch wrapped in a shawl, looking small and uncertain in the half-light. Rosa must have given her a simpler dress, dark blue cotton that was practical if ill-fitting. She spotted Benjamin and walked over carefully, picking her way across the yard. "Rosa said you'd be in the barn. I wanted to start earning my keep." You don't have to prove anything on your first morning. Yes, I do. She met his eyes steadily. I won't be a charity case, Mr. Bradshaw. You offered me work and I intend to work. He handed her a bucket. Benjamin, and if you're determined, you can start by feeding the chickens. Grains in that barrel by the coop. They're mean little things, so don't let them intimidate you. Olivia took the bucket with a slight smile. I grew up with 3 older brothers. I can handle some chickens. He watched her walk to the coop, shoulders squared with determination, and found himself smiling. Maybe this wouldn't be a disaster after all. The days developed a rhythm. Olivia worked with Rosa in the house, learning to cook on the wood stove, manage preserves, and keep the endless dust at bay. Benjamin caught glimpses of her throughout the days, hanging laundry that whipped in the constant wind, kneading bread dough with fierce concentration, scratching numbers into the ledger books he'd neglected for months. She attacked each task with intensity, like staying busy could keep the pain at arm's length. He understood that impulse. Work had been his salvation, too. 2 weeks after Olivia arrived, Benjamin was repairing fence posts in the south pasture when storm clouds rolled over the mountains with threatening speed. Colorado weather changed fast, and this looked like it might turn nasty. He was racing the weather back to the barn when rain began falling in sheets, cold and driving. He made it to the barn soaking wet, leading his horse inside and stripping off the saddle. That came on quick. Olivia's voice made him turn. She was in the barn's back corner, arranging tack that had been in disarray since Catherine left. Her hair had come loose from its pins, curling around her face in the humidity. You should get back to the house before it gets worse. I will. I just wanted to finish organizing this. It was driving me crazy not having a system. She gestured at the newly arranged bridles and halters. I know it's not important, but— It's important, Benjamin interrupted. I've been meaning to do it for months, thank you. Thunder cracked overhead, making them both jump. The rain intensified, hammering the barn roof with deafening force. Olivia moved toward the door, but Benjamin caught her arm. Wait, that's coming down too hard. You'll be drenched before you make it halfway. It'll pass soon. These storms blow through quick. She nodded, settling onto a hay bale, and Benjamin sat a respectable distance away. The barn was dim, lit only by gray light filtering through gaps in the boards. The sound of rain created an odd intimacy, sealing them away from the world. Can I ask you something? Olivia's voice was quiet. Why did you really help me that day? Benjamin considered the question. I told you, I know what Thornhill does to people. But there's more to it than that. She turned to face him, those green eyes too perceptive. You could have given me money for a train ticket. You didn't have to bring me here, he sighed, rubbing his face. I was angry, seeing him discard you like trash after he did the same to Catherine. I wanted to do something, anything that felt like justice, even if it was just offering you a place to land. He met her gaze. Maybe Miguel was right, and it was a bad decision made by a hurt person, but I don't regret it. You've been good for the ranch, good for this place. I've been good for you, you mean? The words weren't flirtatious, just honest observation. We're using each other a little bit, aren't we? You get help you need, I get a roof over my head, and we both get to pretend we're not completely broken over what they did to us. Benjamin laughed despite himself. You're awfully blunt. My mother always said it was my worst quality. Olivia smiled sadly. Marcus hated it. He wanted me quiet and agreeable, something beautiful to show off. I tried so hard to be what he wanted, and it still wasn't enough. Catherine wanted me to be something I wasn't too, richer, more ambitious, willing to chase risky ventures. Benjamin picked at a piece of hay. I liked the ranch. Liked the simple work of it. That wasn't enough either. Maybe we're both better off, Olivia said softly, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. The rain was already easing, the storm passing as quickly as it had come. Olivia stood, brushing hay from her skirt. I should get back. Rosa will worry. Olivia. She paused at the door, looking back. You don't have to try so hard. You're already more than enough. Her eyes brightened with unshed tears, and she nodded once before hurrying out into the drizzle. Benjamin sat alone in the barn, wondering when exactly he'd started noticing the way lamplight caught in her hair or how her laugh, rare as it was, made the house feel less empty. October gave way to November, and the work shifted to preparing for winter. Benjamin and Miguel reinforced the barn and bunkhouse against coming snows, while Olivia and Rosa preserved every vegetable from the garden and stocked the root cellar. The days grew shorter and colder, frost lasting longer into the mornings. Benjamin found excuses to be near Olivia more often. He'd come in for lunch and linger over coffee while she worked on the ledgers, asking questions about the numbers that he already understood. He'd offer to help carry water or firewood when she clearly could manage alone. She never called him on it, just smiled in a way that suggested she knew exactly what he was doing. One evening in late November, Benjamin was reading by the fire when Olivia came in from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. Rosa had gone to the bunkhouse for the night, and they were alone in the house. She settled into the chair across from him with a book of her own, and they read in comfortable silence. "What are you reading?" she asked eventually. He showed her the cover, a battered copy of Ivanhoe. "Found it in town. Probably silly, a cowboy reading about knights." "I don't think it's silly. Stories are stories, whether they're about knights or cowboys." She hesitated. "Would you read some aloud? I miss my father reading to us in the evenings." So Benjamin read, stumbling occasionally over complicated words, while Olivia listened with her eyes closed. Her face relaxed in a way he rarely saw, the constant tension easing. When he finished the chapter, he found her watching him with an expression that made his heart stammer. "Thank you," she said. "That was nice. We could make it a habit if you wanted." "I'd like that." It became their evening ritual. After dinner and chores, they'd sit by the fire while Benjamin read. Sometimes Olivia would take a turn, her voice bringing the words to life in ways his rough delivery never could. They worked their way through the book and started another. On those nights, the house felt like a home again. December brought the first real snow, 6 inches that transformed the valley into a white expanse. Benjamin taught Olivia to ride, starting with the gentlest mare and leading her around the corral while she gripped the saddle horn with white knuckles. By the third lesson, she was sitting easier, even laughing when the horse tossed her head playfully. "I'm doing it." Olivia's face was flushed with cold and pleasure. "Benjamin, look, I'm really riding." He was looking, had been looking for weeks now with increasing intensity. She was beautiful out here, wind-chapped and smiling, so different from the broken woman on the hotel steps. Something in his chest expanded painfully, an emotion he'd thought Catherine had killed permanently. "You're a natural," he called back, meaning it. After the lesson, they stood in the barn cooling down the horses. Olivia's fingers were clumsy with cold as she tried to unbuckle the girth, and Benjamin moved to help. His hands covered hers, both of them stilling. When she looked up, her face was inches from his, her breath visible in the cold air. "Benjamin." His name was barely a whisper. He should step back. This was complicated and potentially foolish. They were both vulnerable, both healing. But her eyes held his, and he could see his own longing reflected there. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he lowered his head and kissed her. She made a small sound and kissed him back, her cold fingers curling into his coat. The kiss was gentle and searching, neither of them rushing. When they finally parted, Benjamin rested his forehead against hers. I'm sorry, that was probably too soon. Stop apologizing for things that feel right. Olivia smiled, truly smiled, radiant and genuine. I've wanted you to kiss me for weeks. I was starting to think you never would. I didn't want you to think I brought you here for that. You're not some replacement for Catherine, Olivia. You're... He struggled for words. You're something completely different, something better. Good, because you're nothing like Marcus, and that's the best compliment I can give. She kissed him again, briefer this time but just as sweet. Now come on, before we both freeze to death and Rosa finds us as tragic ice statues. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Benjamin felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe. The possibility that what Thornhill had broken could be rebuilt into something stronger. Christmas came quietly. Miguel and Rosa joined them for dinner, a feast Olivia and Rosa had been preparing for days. They had roasted chicken, potatoes, preserved beans, and a dried apple pie that was almost as good as fresh. Benjamin had ridden to town the week before and bought small gifts. A good knife for Miguel, fabric for Rosa, and for Olivia, a leather-bound journal he'd seen her admiring in the general store. She held it like something precious, running her fingers over the smooth cover. Benjamin, this is too much. No, it's not. I've seen you writing on scraps, figured you deserved something better. I got you something too, it's not as nice. She handed him a wrapped package, suddenly shy. Inside was a pair of leather gloves expertly stitched. The leather was quality work, supple and well made. Olivia, these are beautiful. Where did you? I made them. Rosa taught me leather work and I used some scraps from the barn. Your old gloves were falling apart. She bit her lip. Are they all right? They're perfect. He pulled her into a hug, not caring that Miguel and Rosa were watching with knowing smiles. Thank you. That night, after Miguel and Rosa had left, Benjamin and Olivia sat by the fire as they always did. But instead of reading, they simply talked, sharing stories of Christmases past, of families far away, of dreams they'd once held. Olivia told him about her father's bookshop in Philadelphia, how she'd loved the smell of paper and ink, how Marcus had promised to buy her a shop of her own someday. Empty promises, she said without bitterness. I should have seen through them. We see what we want to see when we're in love or think we are. Benjamin took her hand. I thought I loved Catherine. Now I wonder if I just loved the idea of having someone, of not being alone. And now... He turned to face her fully. Now I know the difference. What I feel for you is real, Olivia. You're not an idea or a convenience. You're the person I want to talk to at the end of every day. The person whose smile makes this whole place feel different, better. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I love you too. I was afraid to say it, afraid it was too fast or I was being foolish again. But I love you, Benjamin Bradshaw. He kissed her then, deep and long, and when they finally parted, they were both smiling. Marry me, he said. Not because you need a place to stay or because we're both lonely. Marry me because I love you and I want to build a real life together, something honest and true. Yes. She laughed through her tears. Yes, of course, yes. They were married in January of 1886, in the small church in Alamosa with Miguel and Rosa as witnesses. Olivia wore a simple dress Rosa had helped her make, cream-colored wool with lace at the collar. Benjamin wore his best suit, brushed and mended for the occasion. The preacher kept the ceremony short, sensing these were two people who'd already committed to each other long before speaking vows. When Benjamin kissed his bride, he felt the last pieces of his broken heart slot back into place, different than before, but somehow stronger for having been shattered and reformed. They held a small celebration at the ranch, inviting a few neighbors who'd been kind during the difficult months. Most were genuinely happy for Benjamin, glad to see him smiling again. If anyone gossiped about the quick courtship or unusual circumstances, they kept it to themselves. That night, Benjamin carried Olivia over the threshold of their bedroom, the one he'd once shared with Catherine but which felt entirely new now. They made love slowly and carefully, learning each other with patience and tenderness. Afterward, Olivia curled against his side, her head on his chest. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly. "Happier than I've been in years, maybe ever." He kissed her hair. "You?" "Yes, I know we came together because of pain, because Marcus and Catherine hurt us both. But this doesn't feel like something built on hurt anymore. It feels like something we chose." "That's exactly what it is. We're choosing each other every day. That's what makes it real." Winter deepened, but inside the ranch house, warmth flourished. Benjamin and Olivia settled into married life with surprising ease. She took over the household management completely, her organizational skills bringing order to systems Benjamin had let slide. The ledgers were immaculate, the pantry well-stocked, the house cleaner than it had been in years. But she was more than a housekeeper. She rode out with Benjamin sometimes, learning to check cattle and spot problems. She had opinions about which bulls to breed and how to manage the grazing rotation. Miguel, initially skeptical of the Eastern City woman, came to respect her sharp mind and willingness to learn. "Your wife is good people, boss," he told Benjamin one February morning. "She has a strong heart. I know, I'm a lucky man. You both are lucky to find each other after such hurt. That is grace." Spring came late to the San Luis Valley, but when it arrived, it transformed the land overnight. Grass greened, flowers bloomed, and the cattle fattened on new growth. Benjamin had his best calving season in 3 years, losing only 2 calves and gaining 38 healthy new additions to the herd. "We could expand," Olivia said one evening, reviewing the books. "The numbers are good, Benjamin, really good. We could buy another 20 head and still have reserves for winter." He looked over her shoulder at the neat columns. She was right. The ranch was thriving in ways it hadn't under Catherine's management. Catherine had spent money faster than it came in, always wanting new furniture or clothes. Olivia was practical, investing in things that mattered. Better feeds, stronger fences, quality equipment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. We're building something sustainable here, something that'll last." They bought 22 head at the spring sale, good stock from a rancher retiring up north. The herd grew to 70 cattle, a respectable operation for the valley. Benjamin hired 2 seasonal hands to help with the summer work, and the ranch hummed with productive energy. In June, Olivia began feeling ill in the mornings. Rosa noticed first, watching with knowing eyes as Olivia turned green at the smell of coffee. When Rosa pulled her aside to ask gentle questions, Olivia's face transformed with wonder. She told Benjamin that evening as they sat on the porch watching sunset paint the mountains red and gold. "I'm pregnant. Rosa's sure of it." Benjamin pulled her onto his lap, holding her close. "A baby, our baby." Joy flooded through him, pure and uncomplicated. Catherine had never wanted children, claimed they would ruin her figure, but Olivia's eyes shone with happiness. "Are you pleased?" she asked. "Pleased doesn't cover it. I'm overwhelmed and terrified and happier than I can say." He kissed her deeply. "You're going to be an amazing mother. And you'll be a wonderful father." She rested her head on his shoulder. "This life we're building, Benjamin, it's everything I never knew I wanted." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer. Olivia worked as long as Rosa and Benjamin allowed, finally agreeing to lighter duties only when she could no longer see her feet. They spent August preparing a nursery in the small room next to their bedroom, painting walls and building a cradle from pine Benjamin milled himself. One hot afternoon, they were arranging baby clothes Rosa had sewn when Olivia suddenly went still, pressing her hand to her stomach. "Benjamin, come feel this." He placed his palm where she indicated and felt the distinct thump of a tiny kick. Awe washed over him. "That's our child. That's our baby in there. I know." Olivia's eyes were bright with tears. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that we found each other, that we're having a baby together. After everything that happened after Marcus and Catherine, I never imagined I could be this happy. Me neither. But here we are." He kissed her rounded belly. "Building something real." In late February of 1887, on a cold night when stars blazed overhead and the mountains stood frozen against the sky, Olivia went into labor. Rosa sent Miguel for the doctor in town while she and Benjamin helped Olivia through the contractions. It was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next afternoon. Benjamin held Olivia's hand, whispering encouragement, terrified by her pain but awed by her strength. When the baby finally came, squalling and red-faced, the doctor announced they had a son. A healthy, perfect boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's strong lungs. "A son," Benjamin whispered, cradling the tiny, wrapped bundle. "We have a son, Olivia." She smiled tiredly, exhausted but radiant. "What should we name him?" They discussed names for months, debating options and meanings. But looking at his son's scrunched face, Benjamin knew immediately. "Samuel, after your father. Samuel Benjamin Bradshaw." Tears streamed down Olivia's face. "Papa would have loved that. Would have loved you." She reached for the baby, and Benjamin placed him carefully in her arms. "Hello, Samuel. Welcome to your life, little one." Samuel proved to be a contented baby, sleeping well and eating enthusiastically. Benjamin would wake in the night to feed him bottles of expressed milk, cradling his son in the rocking chair and marveling at the miracle of him. This tiny person, made from love and healing, was the living proof that pain could transform into joy. As Samuel grew, the ranch continued to prosper. They expanded to nearly 100 head of cattle by his first birthday. Benjamin built an addition onto the house, adding 2 more bedrooms and a proper dining room. Olivia ordered books from back east and started teaching reading to children of nearby ranchers, using their dining room as a makeshift schoolhouse, 2 days a week. On Samuel's second birthday in February of 1889, Benjamin and Olivia stood on their porch watching their son toddle around the yard chasing chickens. The mountains rose behind them, eternal and steady. The ranch sprawled around them, thriving and solid. "You ever think about them?" Olivia asked quietly. "Catherine and Marcus." Benjamin considered the question honestly. "Sometimes. I hope Catherine found whatever she was looking for, even if it wasn't with him. But mostly I'm grateful to them for being exactly who they were. If Catherine hadn't left, if Marcus hadn't been a faithless snake, we wouldn't be here." He pulled Olivia close. "I wouldn't trade this for anything. Neither would I." She smiled up at him. "We built something real, didn't we? From the ashes of what they destroyed, we built something true." "We did, and we're still building." Samuel squealed with delight as he finally caught a chicken, the bird squawking indignantly before waddling away. Miguel and Rosa emerged from the bunkhouse, Rosa carrying a birthday cake she'd been secretly baking all morning. The 4 of them, soon to be 5 as Olivia was pregnant again, gathered around their son to celebrate. As Benjamin sang off key and Samuel smashed cake into his hair, Olivia caught his eye across the table. In her gaze, he saw everything they'd survived and everything they'd become. 2 broken people who'd found each other and built something unbreakable. That spring, their daughter was born, a tiny girl with her father's dark hair and serious expression. They named her Rose Catherine, after Rosa, who'd been family when they needed it most, and Catherine as a final act of forgiveness for the woman who'd unknowingly led Benjamin to his true happiness. The years rolled forward with the steady rhythm of ranch life. Samuel grew tall and strong, following his father everywhere, learning cattle work and responsibility. Rose proved to have her mother's quick mind and organizational talents, keeping her brothers in line as two more children followed, Thomas in 1892 and Margaret in 1895. Benjamin watched his children grow with constant amazement. Samuel at 15 was already taller than his father, capable of managing the ranch when Benjamin was in town. Rose at 13 kept the household accounts better than most adults. Thomas and Margaret were still young but showed promise of the same strong character their siblings possessed. The ranch now ran 200 head of cattle and supplied beef to markets as far as Denver. They'd built a proper barn and expanded the bunkhouse to house 4 seasonal hands. The house itself had been renovated twice, now a sprawling structure that accommodated their large family comfortably. On a September evening in 1900, Benjamin and Olivia sat on their porch as they had countless times before. 15 years of marriage had added gray to Benjamin's hair and lines to Olivia's face, but their love had only deepened. He reached for her hand, and she laced her fingers through his automatically. "You remember the day we met?" she asked. "You, in your dusty work clothes, offering a job to a complete stranger sitting in the dirt. I remember thinking you had the saddest eyes I'd ever seen. And the strongest jaw, like you were determined not to break no matter what. I remember thinking you were either the kindest man I'd ever met or completely insane." She laughed. "Turned out you were both." Their children's voices drifted from inside, arguing good-naturedly about some game. The mountains stood purple in the twilight, eternal witnesses to the valley stories. Cattle lowed in the distance, a sound that meant home. "I love you, Olivia Bradshaw," Benjamin said. "More now than the day we married, and I'll love you more tomorrow than I do today. I love you too." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for seeing me that day, for offering me a chance when I had nothing. You gave me just as much. You gave me a reason to believe in love again, gave me a family and a home and a life worth living." Samuel appeared in the doorway. "Mama, Rose won't let Thomas have any cake and Margaret's crying because she wants to stay up late." Olivia sighed, standing with a smile. "Motherhood never stops. Come on, let's go referee before they destroy your father's birthday cake." "My birthday's not for 3 days," Benjamin protested, following them inside. "And Rose has been planning your party for 2 weeks. You know better than to get between your daughter and her planning." Olivia kissed his cheek. "Besides, we're celebrating you every day just by being here. By being family." Inside, chaos reigned in the best possible way. Children arguing and laughing, Rosa adding wood to the stove, Miguel telling tall tales that made Thomas's eyes go wide. This was the life Benjamin had built from the ruins of a broken heart. This noise and love and beautiful chaos was everything he never knew he needed. As night fell over the San Luis Valley, the ranch house glowed with lamplight, a beacon of warmth in the vast darkness. Inside, the Bradshaw family gathered around the table, heads bowed while Benjamin said grace. He thanked God for the food, for the land, for the cattle and the rain and the endless Colorado sky. But mostly, he gave thanks for the woman sitting beside him, whose hand found his under the table and held tight. For the children they'd created and the life they'd built together. For second chances and healed hearts and love that proved itself through choosing each other every single day. When he finished, and everyone said amen, he looked around the table at faces he loved more than his own life. Samuel, already planning to take over the ranch someday. Rose, keeping careful notes about everything in her journal. Thomas, stealing extra potatoes when he thought no one was looking. Margaret, chattering endlessly about the calf she'd helped bottle feed, and Olivia watching them all with such love it made his chest tight. This was what real looked like. Not silver mines and empty promises. Not chasing wealth or status or anything that sparkled without substance. Real was calloused hands and honest work. It was children's laughter and shared burdens. It was knowing someone had seen you at your worst and chosen to stay anyway. Benjamin had buried his wedding ring in the dirt 15 years ago, thinking he was burying his capacity for love along with it. But love, he'd learned, couldn't be buried. It grew back stronger when you gave it the right conditions, when you tended it carefully and built something solid to support its weight. He'd lost a wife who never truly loved him and gained a partner who loved him completely. He'd been broken by betrayal and made whole by choosing to help someone else who was broken too. And together, they'd built something that would outlast them both. A family, a ranch, a legacy of love that proved choosing each other every day was the realest thing in the world. As dinner ended and the family dispersed to evening chores and bedtime routines, Benjamin pulled Olivia aside on the porch one more time. The stars were emerging, brilliant against the black sky, and the air smelled of sage and coming autumn. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "Everything, nothing, how lucky we are, how grateful I am that Marcus Thornhill was exactly the kind of bastard he was." Olivia laughed. "That's a strange thing to be grateful for, maybe, but his selfishness gave me you, gave me this." He gestured at the ranch, the mountains, the house full of their children. "I'd go through all that pain again if it meant ending up right here." "Me too." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with those green eyes that had first caught his attention 15 years ago. "We built something real, Benjamin. Something that'll last long after we're gone. We did. Together." They kissed under the Colorado stars, two people who'd been broken by the same man's cruelty and healed by choosing to trust again, choosing to love again, choosing each other, every single day, and building something real from the ruins of what they'd lost. Inside, their children called for them, needing help with homework and bedtime stories and all the thousand small things that made up a life. Benjamin and Olivia went to them hand in hand, ready for whatever came next, knowing that together they could weather any storm. Because that was what real love meant. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to build something beautiful in spite of it. Together. Always together.